All right, I think we are live and welcome everyone. My name is Shane Engstrom. Hi everyone. I'm the director of Outfilm Connecticut, and I'd like to welcome you all to the 33rd Connecticut LGBTQ Film Festival, which is coming up very soon. We're doing something a little different today. This is our very first live Q&A with people who are associated with films from Connecticut. So it's the Connecticut Connections shorts, and we have a cast of people here who are in the films. They're either the subject of the film, or they're acting in the film, or they wrote the film, or all of the above. So welcome everyone.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hi everyone. So I think I'll just start the conversation with kind of throwing out there, a broad question. How is the pandemic treating all you, and has it had an effect on your filmmaking so far? Anyone who wants to go first? Uh-oh.
I'm happy to throw in on that. I have also, aside from Dreamhouse, which is making its festival. The festivals are a mess. I mean, most of them are virtual or canceled. I also have a feature documentary called Missing in Brooks County that's supposed to be on the festival circuit right now. And, it's really tough. I mean, the festivals are scrambling, and some of them are afraid they're going to fold. We have one drive-in that's in person, but other than that, there's really nothing.
Yeah. Well, that's for sure. But one thing that I've heard from other festivals as well is that it has been difficult in some respects, but it's also given festivals an opportunity like ours to actually expand their programming. And since it's all virtual, you have, we went from 5 shorts programs generally to 12 shorts programs this year. And we were able to do one. This is the very first time we've ever done Connecticut shorts as a group. So we feel, happy about that. And so I also want to just ask kind of a broad question. Do any of you have any stories about filming in Connecticut that are any stories about actually filming in Connecticut? I think only 2 of the shorts were filmed in Connecticut, but anything that was particularly challenging or particularly fun about filming in Connecticut?
Well, I mean, this is David, and Jeff and I both worked on Dreamhouse. He was the director, I was the writer producer. So, I mean, this all happened pre-COVID, thankfully. There was a real part of the interesting journey for me is because my movie is very autobiographical. So we were filming in Suffield, Connecticut, a lot of it, although we do have scenes at Shea Est and, Union Station and a lot of other Hartford locations. So to me, it was really, kind of transformative and extremely, deja vu-ish to be kind of filming a period of my life in the actual town in a house very similar to the house that I grew up in Suffield. And so that was very interesting to me. But, thankfully we wrapped everything about, I would say 18 months to 2 years ago. So we were able to go through the entire film festival circuit when it was still live, and we won Best LGBT Film for Burbank Film Festival, and we're at a number of film festivals. And I'm not a filmmaker by trade, so this was like a mind-blowing and really exciting experience for me because it all happened pre-COVID, other than this festival.
Yeah. David, question for you. I know you're not from Connecticut yourself, but you obviously picked a Connecticut story and the story of Eric and his family. Can you tell us how you found this story, how it came to you, and what made you want to make the film? And you're on mute. Okay.
Sure. Yeah, well, I actually grew up in Connecticut. I'm from Southern Connecticut originally, and I did move away after I graduated school. But I've returned to Connecticut many times because, I made a film in 2014, a feature that, got some attention and some play. And that was about a group of nursing home residents who make a pilgrimage to Israel. I've had a long time relationship as a video client with a nursing home and now healthcare organization in the Jewish Home for the Elderly in Bridgeport, which is where I volunteered when I was 17 years old to get some experience volunteering on my resume and hopefully get into college. So I do have a lot of Connecticut connections. I do production in Connecticut quite often, actually, I guess the way that I was introduced to Eric through a work connection, actually, somebody who I had collaborated with on a branded content piece once upon a time, and who understood my sensibility, my my interest in mortality as a subject, my sensitivity around those subjects. And she happened to work with Eric at a healthcare consulting firm called Qualidime in Rocky Hill, and she said, "You really should meet this person. I think he's film worthy. We all think so. We're curious what you think." And I usually don't enter into projects, in that way, but she was a trusted friend, and she's now the producer on the film. And I met Eric and I fell in love, and I said, "Listen, if you can raise the money, I'll make the film." And so Eric had everything I think that I, was looking for a compelling subject. So I don't think of it as a Connecticut specific film, but it certainly was fun to make it. I always enjoy being in Connecticut because having grown up in Fairfield County, I didn't realize until much later that we're really not part of the state. And that's a whole other state, and it's actually a whole lot cooler than Fairfield County. So I always enjoy, getting upstate, so to speak.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks. We'll talk to Eric in a minute, but I wanted to ask Maggie Cassella, your film is not connected to Connecticut in any shape or form, but you are. Can you tell us a little bit about your background? And you're on mute.
I am on mute, but your person is muting and unmuting. So that's how that's working. So, I was born in New Haven. I grew up in Bethany. I practiced law in Hartford. I was a lawyer, and I produced parties for girls' parties, women's parties before all of the party things. I owned a club on Farmington Avenue. I was proud of my legal work in Connecticut. We tried the test case for gay adoption in Connecticut, and I worked with trans clients in the early 90s. And, we went through the AIDS plague, and, we're making it up as we went along. That was, it was me and Shirley Pripstein were the two out lawyers back way back in the day. And it's all different now, but it was an interesting time, and I'm pretty proud of my work from that time. And I remember going to like the first Pride, the Hartford Pride, and it was like there were less than 300 of us. We said 300, but we were inflating the numbers. I was very active. I was an activist and very active in the community and doing all kinds of things. So that's my connection to Connecticut. Obviously, Maggie Mysteries is set in the late 1800s, early 1900s. I don't know. And it really is a sort of a takeoff on a very popular Canadian show, which is actually seen there as well, called Murdoch Mysteries. And it's just one of those movies, one of those things you shoot out of frustration when you're watching something and you don't see you in it. You don't see that sort of butchy lesbian who is aggressive and pushy and where is she in 19 whatever, and what would happen if she got on the constabulary, and what would that look like? So that's my connection to Connecticut, and that's my connection to Maggie Mysteries.
Well, I have to say thank you. The LGBTQ community in Connecticut definitely owes a debt of gratitude to you. All your work.
Thank you, but don't. Yeah, now I got to crawl under my desk. I can't. Not good. Not good. Italian and a little Jewish. Not good with compliments. It's like not good enough. Stop it.
Sorry. All right. Brett, so you're another person who your film doesn't have anything to do with Connecticut, but you come from Connecticut as well. Where'd you grow up?
Yes. First of all, I don't want to go after Maggie with that inspiring story. Maggie, that is very inspiring. I echo Shane's words. I just wanted you to know that. Thank you for that. And also, someone in the chat says the red hair is fire. I just think you should know
I was
that
a
someone
blonde
loves your
forever,
hair in the
so
chat
there
room.
you go. But it's my color. I paid for it. Is what I always said about the blondes. This is actually closer to my actual color. But thank you.
Very nice. So yes, Shane, I was born and raised in Hamden, Connecticut. So I still have very close ties to Connecticut. I live in New York City right now. So I moved here in about 2011. So I'm going to Connecticut monthly to see my family. I go home all the time. But yes, Hamden and many ties to New Haven. I mean, it's right around the corner, but I went to performing
Did you
arts
go to
high school in
ECA?
New Haven. So it's down.
I went to ECA.
Yes, Maggie.
Oh my goodness. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from Bethany. I mean, like we were right over the hill from each other.
Yeah.
I could literally spit to your house, and not just because I'm a lesbian and I can spit far. I mean, just, stereotypes be what they are. I am a good spitter. But yeah, we're neighbors. Wow, that's weird. And we both went to EPA.
That's insane. I love that. Isn't it a great place? There's nothing like it.
Well, I mean, what's interesting is, of course, I'm like a lot older than you. And when I went there, it was the only performing, there weren't a lot of performing arts high schools, right? So
right.
I don't know how it is that now, but then it was the only one in the state. You had to audition from all the other schools and then get bussed into New Haven, right?
Yep. Still.
Yeah, great. I mean, were you there when Bob Parker was there? Oh, this is stupid. We'll do it later.
Yes, Bob. Love him.
Love Bob Parker. Okay, sorry. See, Connecticut is happening right here, people.
Good. We're talking all about Connecticut, all different parts of Connecticut.
ECA is a great place, man.
Phenomenal.
Great. So, Brett, more about Diary Room. You wrote the story and you starred in it. But can you tell us, what inspired it? Obviously, there's some Big Brother connection there, but
yes.
Tell us something more about that.
Sure. Well, I'm a huge Big Brother fan. And I said, you know what? If they're not going to put me on the show, I'm going to write myself onto Big Brother. Of course, that's like sort of true. I mean, I do love Big Brother, but I just look to write material that I think I can mine some really good dark comedy out of. And I thought that there's a juicy, dramatic comedy in a guy who is on national television and says way too much because he had a little too much to drink, and how will he deal with the aftermath of that? And I thought there'd be so much kind of human comedy and drama in that. And I just happened to have a connection to a production company in London. So I knew that I could use London. We could film there. I knew that the production company was based there. So I decided to make my character a fish out of water in London, and we used it to our advantage, and we filmed the whole thing there.
Great. So you talked about that interview at the end of, the infamous interview. So how much of that was kind of like true to like your history? Kind of, you hit on topics of bullying and being attracted to straight guys, and all these different subjects.
Yeah. Oh, I would say 90% true. And I'm glad you touched upon those things specifically, because I even think as of maybe a year ago, I wouldn't even want to kind of admit any of those things that you just said on the list: bullying, being attracted to the wrong people. I was kind of harboring that within, and I am trying to be better at being more vulnerable with the work I'm creating. And that's how I'm kind of choosing to let it out. I wouldn't even say until a year ago I was bullied. You kind of paint a picture that, oh no, everything was perfect, high school was fine. I was definitely a denier, but work has let me kind of let it out and kind of admit the deeper, darker truths of what it's like to grow up in the closet and grow up gay that even I wasn't admitting until recently.
Yeah. And how is it? What was it like having written the thing and then being directed by someone else? Is there like a push and pull, and you're like, no, I really want to do it this way? Don't tell me.
Well, I think that in telling such a personal story and a raw story, you have to have the right collaborator. And I think the right collaborator is just someone you know personally, which again, I've worked with the whole production company before. The director is very gentle, compassionate. I think that's very important when you're telling this story too, because you have to be comfortable to let loose as an actor and go to again, a deeper, darker place. So just trusting the director, knowing him, and the gentleness and the compassion. Hi, Ben, if you're watching. Ben is the director. Really made it possible.
Great. So let's switch a little bit to Dreamhouse. And David and Jeff, you're both Connecticut natives, and I think you both still live in Connecticut, right? Okay.
Yeah. I live in Avon, Connecticut.
I'm up in Enfield
And
on the Mass
All right.
border.
Jeff's in Enfield, yeah.
So I know that this film, it started out kind of as a play, and then it became a film.
Yeah.
So can you tell us what was the most difficult part of like making that transition?
Well, it's kind of interesting not to get sideline this, but the journey of this from a play to a screenplay, I think, is reflective of all the kind of support I've gotten throughout the years from the Hartford arts community. Because when it was first produced as a play, it was at Playhouse on Park. Love them. It's a great theater organization, and you'll note that Sean Harris, who's the artistic director, one of them from Playhouse on Park, actually plays a character in my film. So, people, Jacques Lamar was very helpful at the beginning of it. So it kind of transitioned from theater people. Hartford Stage Company suggested a couple of their actors to play some of the lead parts into, then I met Jeff. We were taking an acting class at the Hartford Stage Company together, and he expressed an interest in it, read it, and said, I really think this has some like filmic possibilities, some potential. So, the first step in that transition was to create a trailer. So we created this trailer, which is amazing. You should see it. It's not part of the film festival, but it looks like a full-length feature film. We would go, to Shea Est, and we would shoot 2 sentences, and then we would go to Union Station, and we would shoot another 2 sentences. And when you string this all together, it looks like a feature-length film. And that was all part of an effort to raise money. So we did put up an Indiegogo site. I think we raised about $12,000 by shaming family and friends of mine. And I soon realized that my dream of making a feature film was probably going to have to go on hold for a while. But with, that money and an additional, 4 times that I was able to pull together, we did create this short film, and I have to, kudos to Jeff. I'm so glad is on the call, because really, Jeff is somebody who's, an Oscar shortlisted film director. He has done big projects, the documentaries such as he just mentioned. So for him to take me under his wing was, a seismic shift at that point, that it definitely would not have happened without his participation. So anyway, this is kind of a dedication to all the people along the pathway who helped.
Jeff, can you tell us what drew you to the film?
Well, it was David's personal story, and he'd written it really beautifully, and it seemed like it was manageable. We had all the locations. Connecticut is really beautiful. I'm originally from Indiana, and I spent about a dozen years in Los Angeles, and now I'm in New England, and this was, I think, the first time that I got to shoot something at this level in Connecticut. So it was also an opportunity to just find the talent in Connecticut. and find collaborators. And there was a lot of talent in Connecticut. And so it was just a great experience. And that was another thing that I was kind of excited about, was to, just to shoot something in a place where I'd never really.
And without giving too much away, the ending of the film is kind of shrouded in mystery a little bit, but it is hopeful, because you're kind of like, you hear someone say "Mark over here," you hear a splash, but you're kind of left wondering what happened. So was that intentional, and is there more to the story that you plan to tell in the future?
Of course it was intentional. No, I mean, it definitely is a movie that ends it's almost a commencement. This main character, there's an extremely attractive handyman who comes on the scene to fix up this deteriorating dump of a house that middle-aged gay Mark lives in with his elderly, crazy mother, frankly, based on my mother to some degree. So it's like, well, what is going to happen next? Is he going to go this route, or is he going to stay on the route that he's at? And so I would love to say that was a wonderful artistic decision. It was born in part by resources and the fact that, my goal eventually, I suppose, would be to create the feature-length version of it, or some sort of a web series or something like that. But we wanted to create a sample, and it's a significant one for a short. It's a half an hour that we could produce, and it would be, it would introduce all the kind of primary conflicts, but it clearly is ending at a point where we don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah. One question I had was, it was kind of ambiguous whether Mark had ever formally come out to his mother. And I mean, I'm kind of wondering, was he out to his mother? Because she was kind of seeming like she was playing matchmaker at points, but then other times.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit funny. You could look at it. I view it as a sort of a poetic realist piece, not because that's sort of my theatrical background, which would be more in not to put myself in that category, but the work of Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller, where things are extremely realistic, but they sort of resonate with more poetic levels. And so, did she choose this handyman because she thought he might be a potential partner for Mark? Unlikely, I don't know, but possible. So
you're not going to get an answer. That's the answer.
You're not going to get an answer. It's ambiguous. And some people, and a couple of people have watched it at the end, and they said, "Is the ending a dream sequence?"
Yeah. All right. Looks like he's frozen a little bit. So let's move on to A Spirit in Flight. So from A Spirit in Flight, we have David Gaynes, again, the director, and Eric Jurado Diaz, who is the subject of the film. Let me see. So, David, I saw that you had used Seed and Spark to raise funds for the film. Can you talk about the role of like these group funding websites these days for making short films? Hold on, you're muted. There.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah. So I think that was not my first crowdfunding campaign. It was my first crowdfunding campaign with Seed and Spark. I don't think I have mastered crowdfunding by any stretch, but of course they say the statistics are that mostly donations are friends and family anyway, and it's the very rare project that becomes a breakout. So we had hoped that we would maybe reach beyond friends and family, and it didn't necessarily. But I think one of the great things about that platform, any crowdfunding platform, is that it creates an opportunity to call on people that maybe is a little more subtle than just asking the people for a check. And for that, you fork over 5%. But I think also a lot of the funds were raised through friends and family and work colleagues. I would say work colleagues of Eric specifically. His work family was like family. I think that you sort of see that a little bit in the film, even though it's not touched on explicitly. And I needed a way to, and Julia, my producer, needed a way to call on that community, which was not familiar to me.
Yeah.
So it actually served our purposes fairly nicely. And even though we raised far less than we originally thought that we needed for the film, it didn't really matter in the end. We made it.
And
It's funny how you think you need what you need, and then when you have what you have, you make what you do, right?
Exactly right. Exactly
It's like,
right.
and then you can't tell anyone, because if you tell anyone you made it and it looks that good for what you made it for, they're like, so then why do you need this money? And it's like, are you kidding me? I actually was buttering bread for the crew myself, right? Well,
fortunately, I think I'm the only documentary here. If I'm reading between the lines, but fortunately, my crew works real cheap. Because I pretty much shot this one myself. So
yeah, so you don't say that, because then they'll be like, "Well, shoot the next one yourself, right?" And you're like, "No."
If you really did shoot the film yourself, were you jumping out of the plane as well?
I didn't know. Fortunately, the skydiving place. So for anybody who hasn't seen the film yet, which is probably everybody watching currently live on Facebook, as this is being broadcast, Eric does jump out of a plane. It's not a big surprise. There's no spoiler there. He does it the first minute of the film, which is no small feat for somebody with ALS. And I fortunately did not have to jump out of the plane. I might have considered it, but the people at the skydiving place have that. They're very good at what they do from a skydiving standpoint and a videography standpoint.
We've heard very good things about Skydive Danielson.
I have nothing but great things to say about them. They were amazing collaborators. I didn't think at the time that he jumped out of the plane that it was going to be the central visual metaphor for the film. It was very early in the process. He jumped out of he did 2 jumps as I was a part of the project, and it was really sort of an afterthought as I left the place. I wonder if they'd even give me the raw footage. I mean, they told me that I could use Eric's edited footage. He bought a video package, a memory type of package that they added onto the jump. And I called them up and they said, "Oh, sure. Yeah, why not?" 5 minutes later, a link. I mean, it was like the easiest footage I've ever acquired. And it's like they're really spiritual people who jump out of planes professionally. And they couldn't be happier to be like collaborators on this project. So I have raw footage from 2 jumps, which were really helpful, in making the film.
Great. All right, let's talk to Eric. Eric, hello. How are you? How are you doing? Hold on. He's muted. All right, here we go.
There we go. I'm doing good. Thank you for asking.
So I was wondering if you...
Very happy to be
Yeah,
here.
we are so happy you're able to join us. Are there any misconceptions about ALS that you want to kind of set people straight on?
Not too sure about that. I know ALS is even though it's an old disease, it's fairly new to a lot of people. This is why I took on to tell everybody that I have it, because the more people that I tell, the more people will learn about it, and there's always a connection. There's always someone in their family or friendship circle that will tell me, "Oh my God, I have somebody who has ALS," and then I make that connection. It's a new person that I will meet and become part of my family. And I wanted to say something to Maggie when she was talking. And I know it has nothing to do with the movie, but if you own a club on Farmington Avenue, was that across from Stinson Avenue? Okay, the bar. So I performed there. Some of the pictures that David used in the film were taken at your location.
In the 6 whole months that it happened before I went broke.
And talking about
Yeah, that was one of my...
Eric, what did you perform?
Were
you singing, or what was your performance?
I was a female impersonator.
Well,
okay.
And what was your name?
And my name was Still, and even though I don't perform anymore.
Nice. I might vaguely
Valdez.
remember that now.
If you look at a couple of pictures that David put on the film, they were taking out the
Yep.
stage that you had in the back. It was a very
Yeah.
small stage, but big enough for me.
Yep.
And you also
Yep.
had a piano on the front, and I performed on top of the piano many times.
You know what? I have to say, worlds colliding.
And-
Like, this is a beautiful moment for me. So thank you for sharing that. That's amazing.
And it's funny because you know what? I make friends and connection. I don't know if I talked to you or there was another owner.
Long blonde
wait,
hair,
you
yeah.
were
Long
blonde
blonde
hair,
hair.
right? So you were my connection because I lived down the street and I walked to the bar and I told, I guess, you that I wanted to perform, and we made it like a Latin night once in a while. I mean, so now that I'm here with
This
you
is
in
so
this
cool.
group, it's just to show that whatever you do in life, you better do it right. Because 30 years later, Maggie will show up
Yeah.
on my interview and take over.
No, I would never take over. I'm a little more dialed back these days because I live in Canada now and I'm Canadian. So
He's very,
you know.
Pretty good. But no, now being serious, another film, it was just about a person living with ALS, not dying from it, living with it. But I'm also a gay man, so I need to put it out there that, you know, I as a gay, you know, can still get ALS. We get cancer, we get anything, you know, but ALS is not shown on the gay community at all. Thank God for me. And also back to Maggie, she's a lawyer. My best friend, Pedro Segarra, who was the
I love Pedro.
life, and he supports me in everything that I do. And he wants me to make sure that my ALS story, well, my story, and it includes being gay, is being told out there. And I know David, by making this film, touched on many, many groups of people that probably never thought about, you know, thinking or talking about ALS. And, you know, I'm very open and very public. My life has always been that way. So I still have a lot of people that probably by doing this year will be the first time they were like, oh my God, you know, Eric has ALS. Because somehow we lost connection through the years. But I want people to know, you know, I'm still here. This is what it is. And I need you to know so you can pass along the information.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So one more question for you, Eric. I know in the film we saw a lot of your family, your relationship with Louis and your kids. I'm wondering, it didn't really talk a lot about your, you know, when you got married or made the decision to have kids, but I just wanted to ask you about that since it was such obviously an integral part of your life.
And how long we have for this?
Wrapping up. No.
Maybe see, that's very hard, and David can tell you it's very hard for me to wrap up anything. I will make a short story long. Well, I met my husband 27 years ago. We married 10 years ago legally. Thank Maggie. Thank you again.
No, that wasn't me. I wasn't marriage. I was adoption.
Oh.
And then we were able to adopt as a couple 3 wonderful children. Thank you, Maggie.
Okay, that was our case.
You take that one. So we were able to, we foster kids. We foster about 33 kids in the 18 years that we did fostering.
Wow.
And through all those years, we were able to adopt 3 wonderful kids. You know, we took a 4-year-old that today is 22. We took a 2-year-old who today is 19 and he's in the Marines right now in Hawaii. And we adopted a 2-day-old baby from the hospital. And I know I don't talk about this much, but nobody wanted to foster or adopt this baby because he was born from an HIV positive mother. And they called everybody, you know, up and down, and everybody said no until they got to us. And the moment they said they don't want this baby because how he was born, I went nuts. We drove straight to the hospital and we did all the paperwork and picked him up. I said, even if he turns out to be positive to the HIV, no one is going to say no to this baby ever. thank God he's a healthy 10-year-old boy, going to be 11 next month. And I'm telling you, it's been the best thing ever. And I'm so glad that David included them in the film, because they are so, they're my life, and they're being affected right now by my condition, even though I try not to either talk about it or show any signs. I mean, it's obvious I'm in a wheelchair, I cannot walk or you move my arms. But I still have the upper hand in the house. I'm still the ruler. I say, if you don't do what I said, I will run you over with a chair. I'm still in charge.
All right, great. You made me tear up a little bit there. So I saved Maggie for last because I needed a little comic relief to end the session. So Maggie, tell us, you told us a little bit about Maggie Mysteries already. And it seems like you're a very busy person. I mean, you're LGBT activist, you're attorney, you do radio, you did the first nationally televised talk show, lesbian talk show.
All right, okay, not quite. So, I mean, technically, if you want to go, who was the first out lesbian who had a talk show, but I was in Canada, right? So a national televised talk show in Canada is, Canadian famous is somebody stops you in Sears and says, you work at the Sears by my house. And I say, yes, I do. I mean, nobody knows who anybody is here, but it was a great run. It was a lot of fun having a nationally televised talk show in Canada. I did have a drive time radio show. I worked a lot for the CBC. I, went from having my show, and then, this is the business. The show gets canceled. You have a radio show, that something happens there. I owned a club. To go back to what Eric was talking about, I opened like a supper club, like a cabaret bar, which was just about the shows. So you'd have dinner, you'd watch a show, 54 seats. If you talked during a show, I would smack you in the throat so you couldn't talk for 5 minutes. I'm kidding, but it was all about the shows. That place burned down, and I'm Italian, and I was in Florida when it burned. So everyone thinks I did it. I did not. And it's like the entertainment business as opposed to being a lawyer. It's the same thing. Really, you're always looking for what's next, right? Because not everybody is on a show that runs for 12 years, gets a sitcom like Modern Family that runs for 10 or 11 or 12 years. So it's always the next thing. And I think most people on this panel who make content or films or documentaries, it's the same thing. It's this thing that you do and then it's done and then you move on. But I formed a production company right after the club with a woman named Katie Ford, who wrote a little movie called Miss Congeniality. You may have heard of it. Who moved back from LA to Canada. And we got together and in fact, she's just sold a show to Apple that Patricia Arquette is going to star in and Ben Stiller is collaborating on. But we wanted to make short form content for the queer community that you could see on all kinds of screens. So that's what our little company is doing. Maggie Mysteries was our first short. We did a show in June for CBC, which y'all could watch. If you go to YouTube and you go to the CBC Comedy Channel, it's geo-blocked in Canada, but I'd love for people in the States to watch it. It's called We're Funny That Way. We're Funny That Way is a comedy, a festival that I produced since I moved here pretty much. It's a queer comedy and music festival. Leah Delaria is in this one. Andrea Martin makes an appearance, Colin Mockery. A lot of people, some people you know, some you don't. It's kind of a variety kind of show, and it's a COVID special, but I think we did a really good job. So that aired, and that's still, you could find that online. I'd love for you to see it. And that's what we do. We're trying to, so our goal as Ford Cassella Productions is to make this content under the We're Funny That Way banner. It's not all comedy. It's We're Funny That Way was the pejorative. And those of you who are on the panel who are old enough to remember this, that's what people used to say when they were like, oh, Uncle so-and-so, he's funny that way. So back when we started the festival, my friend Leah actually said you should call it We're Funny That Way. So now people think, oh, it's a comedy festival, but because that pejorative has gone away, people don't usually go, he's funny that way anymore, or she's funny that way. But that's what the We're Funny That Way festival is. We sort of took that back, and we've had some, Leslie Jordan was at the festival. We've had some pretty big names at the festival over the last 20 years. And and that's what we're up to. And we're trying to move on to the next, what's the next thing? You can see I've got a pilot on the board there. I've got another one on the wall across. I've got about 5 pitches in progress. I'm working on a podcast with Leah. So I'm all over the place, but in a way that feels really good. Trying to actually launch the website. We're funny that way. And you know, it's been a pretty wild ride, and I'm hardly done yet. I feel like I'm just getting started because y'all know we're all pivoting now, right? I'm pivoting so much. I'm busy because I can't do live stand up, and you know, stand up to nobody is possible, but not fun. So yeah, and I'm also the voice of the veterinarian on Clifford the Big Red Dog. So if you ever, if you're watching that cartoon, we don't get it up here yet. So that's
all right.
I'm the singing vet.
It does seem that feminist filmmaking is on the rise. So do you think it's becoming easier for women to produce films, or is that just lip service at this point?
You know what? I think that if you watch the Emmys, you could see that there's a reckoning happening, that, you know, making sure that there's representation for Black, Indigenous, people of color, you know, and women and queers is really, I think it really is happening. What I loved about the Emmys, I think they did an amazing job, was, you know, listening to Issa Rae talk about, you know, someone saying, oh, so your show, some white guy saying, so your show is about a black, blah, blah, black woman, blah, 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 when it's like that, like, screw you, that's not what my show is about. You know, I've certainly had that experience in pitches, you know, where it's like, oh, this is a gay movie. And it's like, well, no, it's not. It's like a buddy movie where the leads happen to be, you know, their ex-girlfriends. But things get branded by people in high places, if you will. And I think that's changing, and I think that's good. But the other thing, and this is the thing, is that, like, you know, I have a broadcast quality camera now. It cost me $4,000. You know what I mean? And that's so I can shoot and sound, and I have a sound booth in my, you know, in a closet down here. It's actually used to be a wine cellar, but I don't drink wine. So, you know, there's so many things that we can produce now that are of a high quality, because the cost of the equipment has gone down. And I've learned to edit. How many on this panel didn't do a rough edit on something, you know, and say, I want to take these shots? So I think that's another thing why you're hearing more queer voices and more voices from, you know, people of color and people who don't see themselves on screen are just like, you know what? And that's what Issa Rae said on the Emmy. She's like, screw you, I'm just going to do it. And that's how I feel, and that's how we feel.
Great.
I see we got a question from somebody about. We haven't sold. And we're working on something. I'm just saying Leah and I are working on something. So we'll let you know if it comes out. But there is a We're Funny That Way podcast that you can go listen to on Spotify and iTunes. There's like 3 episodes up right now. But yeah, and you know, if I make a second Maggie Mysteries, for sure, Leah's got a part in it. So
Awesome.
Leah's my writing part. Leah Delaria gave me my start in comedy. When she saw me at Hartford Pride in 1980, I think 8, and said, you're really funny, you should do stand-up. So that's how I got my start in comedy. Leah was performing in Hartford. And then she said, come to Provincetown and do something in my show. And, you know, it's been history ever since. Like, we've been writing together and doing stuff. And then she got super famous with Orange is the New Black. And now she doesn't talk to me anymore.
I'm sure.
I'm kidding.
It seemed like Maggie Mysteries was a lot of fun, and it seemed like there must have been many times when you couldn't stop laughing and you had to break character.
Okay, so here's the thing. I wrote it, but I'm kind of the straight person in it, as you can tell. My friend Shannon McDonough, who's also the director who plays the male cop, I just literally, that whole first scene is me trying not to laugh. And there's one point where you can actually, fortunately, I'm not talking. You could see me like smiling to myself. And then Marilla Wex, the British woman, she just killed me. Every look, everything. And she's a pretty successful actor here in Canada and a very, very successful voice actor. So yeah, between Marilla and Shannon and of course Brandon flouncing all over the place, it was really hard to not laugh, except for the stuff that was shot in the ravine behind my house with the dog. That was very uncomfortable and unpleasant in those clothes, on a hill, lying on the ground, you know, fake fighting, rolling around, because those, you know, the story is, you know, think about what it must have been like to be that woman in that time, trying to have a life and a job and all of that stuff. So the serious note is that, but really it has to be funny. Otherwise, dental dams for every girl. That's all.
Yes, that should be the tagline for the film. So I do want to thank everyone for joining us. I mean, it's been a great opportunity to commune about all things Connecticut and all your great films. I hope everyone gets a chance to tune in if they haven't watched already. And so thank you all for being here with us today. So
Thank you, Shane.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Shane.
Shane.
Thanks, Jane. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
I'm going to just ask if everybody can send an email so we can all stay in touch.
yeah, is everyone good? All right.
Okay.
We'll reply all.
Okay.